Project 6, Putting the Pieces of the Puzzle Together. Grant Writing for Education, Documenting the Journey. Hello, my name is Shanika Bridges Matthew. I am excited about Project 6 because I'm able to document my journey of progressing through Dr. Baylen's class titled Leading and Managing Instructional Technology Programs. Um, for the most part, I enjoyed making this video for Project 6, and I hope you enjoy it. So first of all, let's talk about why is teacher collaboration and communication so important. And I've thought about some old things from the past as coming to this project, and my whole grant proposal is centered around teacher collaboration and communication. So I'm not going to read the slides verbatim, but we're going to talk about that as it relates to the grant proposal and to Project 6. Okay, and this is just a picture of an old training. All right, so I have a video embedded here. I'm going to play. Now, the thing about using Screencast-O-Matic is that embedded video audio does not play, and as well as sound from the computer that I had embedded into the PowerPoint. So this is just a copy of a video about teacher collaboration. You know, how does it look? What does it look like? Um, and just, just to give you a visual of that. And I'm sure you all know because most of you are probably educators. So I'm not trying to negate your professional knowledge and level. But this is just an example that I wanted to include. I got from YouTube. Okay. Okay. And so this is what I really mainly envisioned going on in the project. Okay. All right. So basically, from that comes engagement. So when I was writing the grant proposal, very methodical in the way that it was written because one task led to another. And as it led, putting those pieces together, looking at the data, I realized that it all goes back down to interaction and cooperation amongst professionals, using the same things that we use in class to motivate students to learn. So that really was the whole process of the journey, and we learned that as students in this class. And this picture illustrates that it actually comes from a former training that I was a part of. Okay, so if you look at this next slide, it talks about the demonstrated needs and meaningful partnerships. Well, the first project one, basically, we had to collect data, and that data had to show, what were our needs in the school. And you can look at this chart and see that we, really suffer when it comes to area of math, coordinate algebra, and geometry as well as math too. And that's something that is really across the state. But we are a Arabian Mountain High School, which the school of which the grant proposal was based off of. It's a science, technology, engineering, and math school. So our meaningful partnerships, centered around getting people who can come in to help us to understand this data, help us attack the math scores holistically from a interdisciplinary standpoint. And what I did, I just recorded um, the interview information that we had from the survey right here. And the survey data basically showed that there was little teacher synergy. And that may be a cause of a lack of math goals and achievement. So basically, that's why I developed the professional development as most needed of Arabian Mountain High School being interdisciplinary cross-curricular planning, because if we work together more, we can achieve those goals. And so this is just my administrator as well as librarian and 3 teachers' data. So that leads us to data-driven decision making. Looking at the data, looking at what we have, and putting those pieces together. So I thought this picture was a good illustration because it talks about our main goals being that we need to address technical issues in math instruction at our school. We need to develop a formal written plan to talk about how we're going to integrate things across all contents. And we want to have training that's easily accessible to the teacher. So we will be leveraging technology in order to do that. Now, if you look at this picture here, we talk about the value and the capability and maturity process of data-driven decision making. And in the business world, they call them key performance indicators, and we're just now trickling that down into the education world. I came from the business world. I worked at Verizon Wireless for 7 years, and also as well as AT&T for another year, and the real estate market. And we use these to make sales. And to me, education is more like sales now. So we have to look at it from a more analytical standpoint of gathering the data, understanding that data, and then going into analyzing what if, looking at year over year scores. How can we change those predictions if we implement certain things? So that's really where the gist of this grant comes into, because we can fill in those gaps by doing, predictive data mining, and allowing us to, really rate ourselves. Like the research says, we have to first look at ourselves, then justify the organization. And so that was very critical in this whole concept of coming up with the grant proposal, because like I said, the grant proposal was really to get teachers to collaborate more from an interdisciplinary level across all contents: science, technology, engineering, math, um, English, science, social studies as being a binding unit. So all of those things were critical and very important to making the magic happen, the magic of educating our teachers so that our teachers can educate our students. All right, so that was the primary focus of the overall grant. And we really wanted to address the 5 key ingredients of collaborative planning: mutual benefits, recognition of district sets of expertise, um, agreement on core principles, willingness to negotiate, and strong leadership. So that's really part of this plan of operation. I'm not going to go into it verbatim ad literatum, but that information comes from uh, some research that I really did for the grant. Those are the strategic focus, just looking through the schools that work. And so that helped me to develop the objectives. We want to help students understand the concepts of functions, going back to connecting it with the standards. And we're going to do this across disciplines by increasing the use of symbolic and graphical methods. Um, and we want to do like a project every 2 months. We also want to provide educational opportunities in the classroom that use data and statistical thinking, and establish criteria and mechanisms for assessment in our STEM Magnet program. And we also want to make sure that we're continuously engaging our stakeholders and developing motivations for different strategies. Now, for our evaluation, to make sure that we're doing what we're intending to do and doing it with fidelity, we are going to use the services of Tasha Walker of Tosh Management Incorporated. I don't know if I talked about it on the further side, but we're also using Georgia Piedmont. I have Natasha Anderson is the STEM director there, and since we are at Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math School, and they're not far from us, that's the partnership that we're using. Natasha will be evaluating our program. So our capacity and budget, if you look here, the total budget is about $35,000, $35,010, and most of it really is for funding for stipends as well as for subs. And because most of the training will be involved in the summer, and then we'll be pulling teachers out during the school year, but we would need to have subs to cover those classes. So we do need to have funds allocated for that. And then I wanted to include cost of lunch for the summer programs as well, so that we can have a working lunch. So that pretty much is the gist of that. Some of the challenges that I feel like will be evident in this uh, grant proposal is actually delivering this in an adequate time. I think we always have pressure to do things on task and stay on time. And this is the timeline that I created. And as you can see, is everything is happening within the next 3 or 4 months. So the concern is, a lot of teachers go on vacation. We really just want our STEM magnet teachers, two from each subject level, 2 or 3 from each subject level to be in part of the training. Would not be everybody in the school. Mainly the teachers that focus on the magnet students will be part of the grant proposal. So that's something that we need to look at. Now, as far as lessons learned, the biggest lesson for Project 6 and even the grant is that we just need to get out of our comfort zone. If we want to be leaders in instructional technology and have programs, we have to take risks and we have to write grants. And, a lot of us like to just do enough to get by, but in the 21st century, in education, you can't. You always have to be more, be more, be more. So teaching has to be a calling. Professional development has to be a problem. You have to be excited about what you are proposing to do and be fulfilled for making a difference and having a confidence in what you're doing. And that will just translate throughout the education world. Some advice that I have is that um, you're going to have to use what we are learning in class to outside of class. So what I mean is a lot of things I've learned over the years in my master's programs, the specialist program, is I've taken them outside of the classroom and presenting at national and state level conferences. And even if we don't get this grant together, get the money for it, eventually you will if you keep up. And so this is just an example of some things that I've done in the past. To kind of make connections for the teachers, professional learning. And so, like, even if this doesn't work, the bottom line is making combining and connecting experiences, building that bridge, creating new workshops based off of data. Don't let your data go into waste. I think that's the biggest lesson that you can learn from this project overall. So, like I said, don't think that if you don't get funded, your grant is in waste, because teachers always need professional development. And this is an example of something that my son was involved in at his school. They had STEM night, and as you can see, they have a very detailed agenda, and it really was very successful. And I have a couple of pictures to show how the kids were really engaged from a very strategic plan that was made by the teachers. And I'm sure it took a number of weeks to really make this happen. But when you do invest the time, you have high levels of engagement, not only from students, but also from parents as well. And I think that's the biggest thing that we can really take from doing any projects. This is just a gym full of students eager to learn about science. And I want to see this with math. A lot of Americans have fear of math. We just, we just do. And if we adopt many of the things from other cultures, and I have this picture of a teacher from Finland that I found on the internet. A teacher in Finland explains why her country school system is the best in the world. She says, we pay teachers like doctors. Students enjoy over an hour of recess, and there's no mandatory testing, the opposite of what America does. And I put this as an example because I like to make a point. The point is, we overwhelm ourselves with worrying about tests because the news seems to vilify and ostracize teachers. We stay in school, but yet they don't want to pay us for it, and it seems like all kind of mountains are there. And sometimes, just like myself, I think about going back into the corporate world and leaving all this education that I paid for behind because we don't find value in it. But you really have to go back and say, why am I doing this? Is the test more important than the engagement? Is the test more important than building relationships with students to get them to understand how the world works? And when we look at it from a professional standpoint as training teachers, that's the way that we need to approach them. Get them to connect the dots so that in professional learning, so that they can connect the dots with their students. And that's all that really matters in the end. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I did.